Scientists say there's more carbon dioxide in the air right now than there has been in hundreds of thousands of years. Trees and forests are doing what they can to filter it out of the air. But for decades, some scientists have said our lifestyle of burning toxic fossil fuels, which emits carbon dioxide into the air, is changing our world, and Mother Nature can only do so much. CO2 comes from some of the power plants that produce our electricity. Most of the cars we drive, the planes we fly, and the factories that create them. Some scientists argue the more CO2 in the air, the hotter it gets, and the more extreme our weather becomes.
As Harvey continues to make its way closer to its second landfall on the Texas coast as we head towards tomorrow night into the early morning hours.
I do believe this will probably be the warmest day of the year so far.
1,000 acres have burned across 3 separate wildfires here in Central Texas. That's today alone.
Including much of the Austin metro, we'll see 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch of ice accumulation.
This is not something which is going to stop just this year. It was not special. It is something that is going to probably multiply itself and create more cascades of hazards. And are we really ready?
Dr. Dave Niyogi is a UT geological science professor who specializes in urban sustainability. He works with the city of Austin to find ways to lower extreme heat.
If we don't do anything, if we do not take the urgency of the issue into consideration, we are going to be much more at risk in terms of every investment we have, whether it is our own personal property, it is in terms of the infrastructure the city is building.
And businesses know that. That's why over the last few years, thousands of companies and cities have voluntarily set goals to become carbon neutral or have net zero emissions by 2040, including the city of Austin.
So when we say net zero emissions by 2040, we mean reducing emissions in our community as much as possible.
Zach Baumer is Austin's climate program manager. His team develops the city's plan to decarbonize. Internally, the city has an annual goal to reduce emissions by 5%. And to do that, the city buys a small number of carbon credits or offsets.
It's not a large amount of money, but it does support real reductions and supports the carbon market.
When it comes to the larger goal of net zero by 2040, the city could end up buying more credits when the time comes. But some advocates and experts worry that some companies rely on the credits too much. You may be asking, what are carbon credits or offsets? Well, simply put, the carbon market is a global trading system where carbon is bought or sold. In most cases, if businesses can't meet their goals to reduce their carbon footprints by actually emitting less carbon through technology improvements or production changes, they can buy these credits from projects dedicated to removing greenhouse gases. One carbon credit offsets 1 metric ton of carbon dioxide.
People who get it, they absolutely vouch by it. People who are not understanding the process or who can find flaws in it, they clearly see that this is not going to be the way we are going to solve our problem for this planet. By just simply saying virtually we have moved some carbon.
There are multiple ways to avoid emissions or sequester carbon to create a carbon offset credit. Standards organizations, usually nonprofits, use what they call science-backed protocols and methodologies to create rules to certify if carbon is avoided or taken out of the atmosphere. And those non-government entities create registries of credits that can then be bought and traded on carbon markets. This is mostly unregulated.
The EPA is not involved. There's not state or federal laws mandating any of this. It's all just voluntary.
So measurement is really the cornerstone of everything that we do.
Environmental lawyer and Rice University professor Jim Blackburn started the nonprofit Be Carbon Registry in 2021. He admits, like many other registries, his is a startup and still working to create more measurable and defensible systems.
We're trying to work with the big like A&M and other universities, Clayburgh Institute down in South Texas, working to try to understand how to come up with better range management concepts with regard to keeping soil carbon in the ground.
Verifying carbon credits through rigorous testing can take years. But one of the easier projects to measure is reforestation, where the growth of new trees in a project area can be measured over time.
Within that time, they're sequestering carbon, they're getting bigger.
Arborist Valerie Tamboree runs Tree Folks' reforestation program.
Adopt a bucket, make some trees grow.
The nonprofit works with private landowners and the city of Austin to reforest floodplains and watershed areas. And part of the deal, the trees can't be cut down for 25 years.
These trees around us, they'll intercept some of the rainwater and help with flooding, for instance, and also help to filter the water as it makes it down. And also helps to offset heating and cooling costs because it provides regional cooling.
The carbon credit payments Tree Folks receives just cover their planting costs. Tree Folks' biggest customer is the city of Austin.
We know the people at Tree Folks. The trees are getting planted in our city, on city-owned land. We can go out and see them, and we know it's a real thing happening in our community.
The downfall, it isn't enough to offset large emissions. Tree Folks plants about 80 acres of trees a year. 1 acre of land in Central Texas can capture about 4 metric tons of carbon dioxide each year. According to the Environmental Protection Agency, the average car in the U.S. will produce a little more than that in the same time period. But a big concern with the unregulated nature of this whole process is that these carbon credits can create a false sense of security.
They might be entirely wrong or unverifiable. And that's a huge risk we are putting in the context of placing our entire carbon future, which is essentially being translated as Earth's future, into something which we can't verify.
An investigation by the British news outlet The Guardian found that 94% of forestry credits certified by the world's leading provider were not real and did not reduce carbon. Greenwashing is another concern for environmental advocates when companies may claim they're more sustainable than they really are.
You'll see Wells Fargo is carbon neutral. You'll see these large carbon neutrality claims. And the issue with a carbon neutrality claim, I think, can be that it's then viewed as, well, we're done, we don't have anything else to do. And that they could keep burning fossil fuels and emitting, and continuing to cause climate change.
As buyers continue to try to understand the value,
Huge disparity, if you will, in the market.
the payout continues to be unstable. Blackburn says forest credits can range from $2 to $40 per credit in the U.S.
It would help immensely if the federal government had a program or EPA set laws and standards for offsets. It would help a lot. Because right now it's just kind of everybody, the whole market, the whole thing is at risk. Everybody's at risk.
California is the only state in the U.S. with carbon emission regulations for some business sectors.
A lot of it is just politics. It's culture wars of the United States of who believes in support climate change and who doesn't. A lot of it's gotten wrapped in that, sadly.
All these experts agree, with more resources, the carbon market will play a role in saving our planet in the future. But it's not the only way to protect it.
The best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. So none of us are planting them for ourselves, really.
Okay, will you help me? Put your foot on. Can you help me do it?
Together, we can all take steps to make the world safer.
We're gonna pass them down to the kids and grandkids.
In Austin, I'm Darrenisha Heron.